Yo guys, welcome to The Last Lap.
Don't forget to drop a lovely, juicy 5-star rating if you're watching on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Hope you enjoy, and let's get into it.
Do you think there's a potential shout here because of that kind of stifled momentum and with all the interest of other brands coming in, big manufacturers, Porsche, Williams, for example? Did DeRilton look at what's gone on? Look at, they've done a big roll of the dice, Williams family have left, bought Josko Pito and FX in, hasn't worked out. Their investment, I still think they could, as F1 as a sport grows, and this is why there's so much, anti-Andretti sentiment seemingly from the teams, because they want to keep it a closed book because it's so valuable at the moment. Drive to Survive's about to come out, which we'll talk about in a bit. But it's like, do you think that selling the team off, I feel like DeRilton would probably make money on their investment, and do you think they're like, I think they should be considering it for sure. And I think for someone like Porsche to come in, for example, and take over, there's not many doors, there's not many opportunities to get in. And I think if you get in now and look at the trajectory of the sport where it could be in 10 years' time, when, say, we get 12 teams on the grid, there might not be opportunities to come in because we don't want 15, 16 teams.
It's not going to happen.
That would be silly.
I think that's interesting, actually, because I feel like at the moment, this is probably the highest interest there's ever been in terms of just general brands getting, like, car brands entering Formula One. I don't think there's ever been a point in F1 history where you've had all of what we have so far, plus Audi, plus Porsche, plus fucking Hyundai, fucking everybody wants to be, but Honda want to get back involved again as well. I think if Williams were thinking of doing that, then I think now is a really good time, especially while there's crazy amounts of interest.
I think they will make profits on their investment. When they took over Williams was around 2020. They were really struggling then, and they have got into that midfield fight. Like, they're not miles off. They're not always at the back. They're still in that fight.
It's not like 2019.
It's like half 2021 or whatever.
Yeah, it's just because the top 10 score points. And a lot of the time, I feel like Albon was finishing around that 11th, that 12th, 13th. You're so close, but you get nothing. You might as well finish last because you've got no points for it. So I think, someone like Porsche coming in could be good, but obviously fans are not going to like it because I feel like that Williams name will go in that heritage, unfortunately. But maybe it is time to move on and move.
What would you rather? Porsche take over that team, rebrand it, and it be competitive, or it stay as Williams and stay towards the back?
What a question.
I mean, like I said, maybe it's time to move on and move away from that and be like, look, it's happened. It's a shame for Williams of what they've achieved, but let's remember them for that and not remember them for where they are now. Remember them for when they were champions and all of that stuff.
This is what I mean. It's kind of like, it's like, someone like an old, an old family relative who's clearly like, not quite what they used to be.
And it's like,
when's the...
What's you're saying, when's the right time to kill them off?
No, I'm not saying
take them to the vet.
Where are you taking this story?
I'm just saying, you understand what I'm saying? It's like they're past their prime, and it's
go
just
into the home.
Look, I'm just saying, right? It's sad seeing such a iconic F1 name be so consistently at the back for since 2017 was okay, and then 18, 19. It's just steadily been.
And
it's just like if there's not a potential, because it's competition, right? You've not only got to develop your car, but you've got to out-develop everyone else.
1,000.
And that's part of the problem as well, because you've got all this excitement around Alfa Romeo Sauber with Audi coming in, so they've got good momentum. Aston Martin, I think, have got fantastic momentum.
From last season,
Haas have got, they're hitting the budget cap now with MoneyGram. AlphaTauri, maybe they'll sell that team off, maybe they'll keep it going, who knows? But like, we know the potential of AlphaTauri. We saw that in 2021. It's like Williams, it just feels like they're nowhere.
Especially if they're still not reaching that budget cap, then you're in big trouble because everyone's paying exactly the same amount of thing. Not only do you have to pay and put your money in the right places to build the best car, but if you don't have that money to start off with, then you're always going to be on the back foot. So, if Porsche come in, buy out the team, new facilities, all of that stuff, then that's going to be great for the sport, a competitive brand that's going to hopefully, like Audi want to, try and fight at the front and have more teams fighting for points and, get back to like the kind of 2012 days where you had so many different teams fighting for it. You still had, because I'm always a believer that you kind of need domination in sport. You need maybe 3 teams always at the top, and those 3 teams kind of rotate. So you don't always have the same 3 for 50 years that are always going to be at the top. No, for 5 years you have these 3, and then the next 5 years it kind of rotates a little bit with a different 3 or maybe 2 new teams coming into that.
Creates new storylines. If everyone's equal, you don't get any storylines.
You don't get the likes of Pierre Gasly winning a race or Esteban Ocon when he won a race. You don't get those joyous moments even when they get on podiums. But if you can have it kind of similar to the 2012 days where, there was a few new guys winning, but we also had like 8 different races that season, a lot of different guys fighting for the podiums
was
as well.
Was that the year where we had 7 winners?
7 winners in the first 7 races. And it was just, all the races were
including
entertaining.
Maldonado.
Like all the races, I'm pretty sure were entertaining in that season because you had so many in that midfield fight.
Yeah. And that's, I think that's hopefully the sort of thing we're heading to with the cost cap, bringing the teams together anyway, you'll get that sort of accordion effect, but also like, then the investment from the brands like Porsche, Honda or whatever, and Audi as well, taking over some of the smaller teams. I mean, the dream is that Porsche take over and then call it Porsche Williams. Realistically.
Yeah.
And it's more of like obviously Porsche are running the thing, but it's a bit. It looks like a partnership from the outside, and you keep the Williams name.
Yeah,
that's really the dream.
I guess that's the thing, isn't it? You look at the McLaren from the kind of Senna Prost days, the Marlboro one, and it was the McLaren Honda. But people remember McLaren. You know what I mean? And it's like, if Porsche, it's whichever name comes first, I guess. If you were to, it would be Porsche Williams.
I think it would be in their best interest to call it Porsche Williams.
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, it's like anything, whatever name comes first is kind of thing. Like, you'll probably say it's Tommo and Niran's podcast. You'll say it's Niran and Tommo's podcast. No, it's this way around.
Everyone's got a short attention span.
That's a good point. I'm going to check in the description who comes first in the description.
We'll just blend it together. It's fine.
But regardless, I think like new teams need to be allowed to enter. I still don't get why. I mean, I do get it. It's just greed, I think, from my personal opinion. At the end of the day, it's just greed because another team comes in. It's taken away from my prize pool money, which, look, I understand, but it's just greed at the end of the day. You're sort of gatekeeping and you're shutting people out. You're like, you can't come into our sport because I want this money. And I hate the rules around Formula One where the teams decide what happens.
Yeah.
It needs to have somebody who goes, this is what's happening. And if you don't like it, go away, because we've got other people knocking on the door who want to get involved.
They want to get involved.
Rather than the teams one team goes, actually, I don't like this. It doesn't suit me, so I'm going to vote against it. And everyone's like, well, okay, that's scrap then, because one team voted against it. Like, it's just stupid.
That's the thing, because we talked about this last week, didn't we? We feel like F1 has the power now and the standing and the audience to not have to buckle to these teams. I don't think, don't get me wrong, I want to see Ferrari in the sport for a long time coming, but I think in 2023 today, if Ferrari were like, we want this rule change or we'll leave, I think Formula One would lose less than it would have done 10 years ago.
If
Ferrari had left 10 years ago.
And they won't leave.
It's posturing,
they won't leave.
It's just like, leave.
And they see, okay, crap, this is actually doing really well. Like,
they're doing all right
booming. They're getting more money for being part of it. Okay, we want back in. Do a Honda. Like, you leave, but you're not actually going to leave. You're just threatening. But unfortunately, they cave under these threats because we've been in a place before the growth of Formula One that we've had recently, where if they did leave, then more teams will follow and it would be bad for the sport. But now we've got a lot of people and a lot of teams who are interested, a lot of companies who are interested to get into the sport. So if you do leave, okay, see you later then.
Ciao, adios.
Yeah, there needs to be more power, realistically.
So my contract said that there's 2 teams in support. Alpine, rumoured to be Renault engine deal with Andretti, so that's why there's support. And McLaren, Zach Brown, I guess, kind of gets it.
Yeah.
You know?
Just vibes. They're just like,
I think
get involved.
Zach Brown's a smart man who goes, do you know what, who thinks more, I think, about the show than...
He's a marketing man as well.
But he's a marketing man. He thinks more about the show. He's like, another team in, it's going to make it better. It's
An American team as well.
An American team is going to mean more money from America, more sponsors from America. Like,
I think sometimes you've got to think outside the box. I know they're going like, the pie is getting... But if you if you really deep it, another American team getting involved in Formula One would, like an actual all-American team as well that we mentioned before, not necessarily in terms of the driver lineup, but potentially taking a driver from IndyCar, for example. That's immediately an extra lane opened up. The fact that they're just American in the first place, like F1 are trying to cater to that audience. That is going to bring so many more eyeballs to the sport and therefore a bit more money as well. That can be then split between the teams. You got to just think about it a bit more.
I do kind of feel like there's this kind of like there is this kind of gatekeeping against America from Formula One because it's just kind of like not Formula One themselves. Obviously, we've got 3 American races,
the teams.
But you've got the likes of Colton Herta last year, that big drama where everyone was just like, no, you can't come in. Like even though they found sort of loopholes and ways that he could drive if they wanted him for AlphaTauri, but there was a lot of people just like, no, you can't drive. No, he's not allowed. And it's this again where it's like an American team wants to get involved.
It's
just like,
nah, you're not allowed political. Like there's so much bollocks. Like if it was another FIA series that Colton Herta was in, like say he was, I don't know, like an IMSA or I don't know, like if it wasn't IndyCar, I feel like they would have been more compromising to get him in. But because it wasn't, they want to set a point like, no, we want the drivers to come through our system. But then also you've got the FIA and MBS being like big like proponents of Andretti coming in and shouting like tweeting about it and just like not even from the official account, just from his like, you know, he's just sat on the toilet on the shitter, just like
let's get people talking.
And I think it's a huge thing that somebody is so keen because obviously we talked about it before where they've tried to get in through. I think the rumours were they were going to go with Sauber and link up with them and be a partnership there.
Yeah, they did try,
and that got denied. So they're like, right, okay, how do we get in? Let's try and do it ourselves. Like, no, you can't do it yourself. Okay, we're going to align with Cadillac, so we're going to be a car brand. No, you can't do that. I mean, it's just like, how do you get in?
This is literally what we said last week as well. It's kind of like, if Andretti, a team with naming heritage in Formula One, along with a major manufacturer and car brand, and all the money, can't get in, and how actually do you get in Formula One?
This is what annoys me because this is an instance where F1 doesn't feel like a sport; it feels like a business.
Yeah, 1,000.
And it's all business politics, and it's not about the good of the sport, which I think everyone collectively would like to see an 11th team at least. And Andretti, you've got Mario's again world champion. Michael raced alongside Ayrton Senna in '93. Like you've got that. It's just it's nonsense.
Yeah.
But
and it's just like the last proper time that we had teams come in. Obviously, I think 12 was perfect back in the 2010 to sort of 2012, 2013 days when 12 cars on the grid. Yeah, okay, the 3 teams that came in were not ready. They were not ready for F1 and they struggled at the back.
That was just dealt with badly. It was a rush and there wasn't a cost cap. There was intended to be a cost cap, but there wasn't in the end.
And the top teams are spending like $400 million a year.
Yeah.
So how are you meant to compete?
But that's why I think that there is this shut off because obviously they allowed them in there that time. What's different between that time and this time, and that is I think the cost cap, and it's like, okay, they can be competitive with us. Like they see Andretti, Cadillac as a threat and be like, okay, you could actually be a decent team. Like if Audi wanted to come in as their own team, they would also be shut off and be like, no, you can't come in because you're a threat to us. You can win the championship and take all our money.
Shit.
Haas joined the sport 2016, finished 8th in the constructors ahead of Renault in their first ever season.
I'd say with that one is that they took over the kind of Mana Marussia spot. So it wasn't like you're stealing our prize money.
The facilities,
They took over the facilities, but they also took over their spot in the championship, kind of. So it was more a case of, like, instead of being now, a new team's coming in, which means your prize pool is going to get smaller because we have to spread it out more teams.
It
was just like, oh, okay, we're still
I mean, more in terms of, like, they were able to be competitive immediately. And they weren't, because Marussia were stuck at the back. Haas were able to take Marussia's facilities.
I miss Mana so much. That red and blue car
it was so beautiful, wasn't it? That last
and they were just getting there. I could sense it. The next season, they were going to beat... Oh, I'm sorry.
They had some sick sponsors as well. They're sponsored by Shazam.
Gas.
And Airbnb as well.
Nice.
if you play a song next to the car, it just tells you what.
But that's how they put up. They couldn't afford the big hotels.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I was going to say. Every track they go to, they're just like putting Airbnb calls out. Please.